It is a parent's job to set the rules, to set the consequences, and then to make sure that everyone follows through with those rules and consequences. Have you ever heard that before? Right? That it is your job as a parent to set the rules and to get your family in order. And if your kids can't follow the rules and you end up having to yell and scream just to get them to follow the rules, you start feeling like maybe something might be wrong with you. Maybe you're just not being consistent enough. Maybe you just need to try harder or get to the consequences faster. I gotta tell you, you are not alone. This is a myth that is prevalent in the parenting space. So many well meaning experts will tell you that you're the parent. It is your job to set the rules and to set the consequences and then be consistent with those consequences. And then your life will be peachy keen. It'll be unicorns and rainbows. But we all know that that is not the case. So today I have got a very, very special guest coming, and she is going to talk to us about how she took her family from yelling and screaming and not listening to working together, creating back to school plans, and even a mama's busy plan. And finally, a plan for what to do when mom is talking. So I cannot wait to share her journey with you and the plans that she's created. Get out your pencils. You're going to want to write this stuff down. I also have my doodle pad because you know what I do when I am talking to someone amazing. So, and you know what to do if you want a copy of these notes, right? So let me bring on the amazing Ashley Newhart. So Ashley, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. And so I know this is a topic that so many people are struggling with, especially like after being cooped up with our kids for the last 18 months. So can you, for people who don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah, I'm a mostly stay-at-home mom with a small part-time job, which now, of course, moved at home thanks COVID. Um, but I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son, whom last year I was homeschooling them, and there was just a whole lot going on, but it was not as chaotic as it could have been. And
What did you say their ages were again?
yeah, my son is 7,
Okay.
and my daughter's 5. He's an extrovert. He's just got so much energy. Like he accidentally just knocks things over and bonks into people. And my daughter is a watcher. She wants to see what's going on and is this situation safe for me to jump into before she gets into things? And they're just so opposite. And so learning how to handle one and then learning what works for the other it's been a fun journey.
Yes, I cannot wait to share your story because there's been some really cool stuff that you were telling me about before. So, can you talk to me? I love starting these, just kind of hearing like what was life like a year ago. So, last October, what was life like?
Yeah, I yelled a lot. I'm just going to start there with honesty. We had to rush to go somewhere. Hey, where are your shoes? I said, get your shoes. Why aren't you getting your shoes on yet? We got to get out the door. Go, go, go. I said, turn the TV off. It's time to turn the TV off. And just, most things I said I had to say multiple times. And then I ended up having to say them loudly. Because even when my son was really little, maybe he was like 1.5, there was something that he was doing. He kept pulling something out of my hand, and I would say, "No, that's not the way to do it." And I was told by someone who I respected, "You have to raise your voice and make it apparent that you're upset about this for him to understand that you mean business." And so I learned that I had to say no in order for him to understand. And it really set me on quite a path of thinking that I had to, I had to show my negative emotions in a way that built up my authority, and that's unfortunately not how it worked.
Yeah, and you were telling me that you believe something about like what your job was as a parent. Can you share that?
Yeah, I thought that my job was to set all the rules, all the parameters, all the consequences, and make the demands that they be met. Boom, boom, boom.
And how was that working for you?
I was really frustrated because, to put it mildly, because it wasn't working, and I was exhausted at the end of the day. And I would ask myself, why did today blow up again? Like, why is this not working? Why is he not, or why is she not, following along? Why is this so hard? This isn't supposed to be this hard.
So hard. I have heard that so often of like, why is it so hard? Like, what's going wrong? Okay, so fast forward to like now. And I am just curious, like, what is life like now? Let's give some people some hope. And then we're going to get into the how you did it. So,
Yeah.
Life was really frustrating. You were constantly doubting yourself. You were constantly feeling like, why isn't this working? You were yelling a lot. You're rushing. And what is life like now? Like, what's a day in the life of Ashley Newhard's family?
It's a lot calmer. There are a lot more snuggles, honestly. My kids want me to do things with them a lot more. But also, when it's time for an activity to end, I can give them a heads up. Hey, let's wind things down. And there's a lot more, if one sibling is more ready, hey, mom said we're done with this now, in a calm voice, and, oh, all right, mom, we're done. Instead of yelling, and I can go to them and talk with them, and it's a whole lot calmer.
I love that so much. Okay. So I'm curious, if you're here watching, how many of you guys would love to know how Ashley did this? How she went from yelling all the time and rushing all the time and setting these firm boundaries and them not working to being at a place where she's able to talk with her kids. Her kids are able to talk back to her and share their concerns, and they're able to get out the door. If you would be interested in that, just, raise your hand in the comments or give us some like heart emojis and love, so that we can tell you the 4 things that she did. I see Brittany saying, me, please, and Helen Langfield Smith saying, me. I love that so much. So you also can just type in notes in the comments if you'd like a copy of these when this is all over. So Ashley, walk us through, what was the very first thing that you did that kind of helped you move from this like nothing's working to, wow, things are working now?
Yeah. I found one of your video series, and I realized that I had to start with me, that I couldn't, when they were infants, when I was trying to rock them to sleep, I would calm my breathing to help calm them down. And I realized that that's what I needed to do again. If I can be calm and say, hey guys, let's calm down, instead of, you have to calm down, it's a whole lot more useful. And I realized that, I can affect change in this, and I have hopes for my family, and that I'm motivated to do this.
Awesome. So how did you do that? How did you get from come now to like being able to stay calm? You were telling me about some of the things that would set you off. Can you give an example and tell me what you did to change that?
Yeah, I realized that I would get really angry when my kids would demand something, like, Mom, why don't I have my applesauce yet? And I'm like, why are they so demanding and bossy? And I realized that I was modeling it, because I would say, hey, it's dinner time. It's dinner time. Why is no one at the table yet? And they were expressing their needs in the way that they saw them being modeled. And I was it really hit me. I was quite ashamed that, like, they're only doing what they've learned. And so if I can teach them negative habits, I can also teach them good habits. And so so working with Stop, Breathe, Anchor, and and realizing that the mistakes that I've made, the mistakes that I will continue to make, don't change who I am. And that I can calm down. I can hear my kids say hurtful things, and I can keep modeling better behavior.
I love that so much. This is such a powerful statement. Like, if I can teach them bad habits, well, I can teach them good habits too. Like, I love that so much. And I also love that you said the mistakes that you were making and will continue to make don't they don't define you as a parent and who you are, and their words are not about you when they're frustrated in the moment. That is so incredibly powerful. So, what by changing the way you saw this, were you then able to respond differently in the moment?
Yeah. Yeah. I was, I mean, there was when my kids would get upset, instead of, why are you acting like that? Or how dare you say that? I would come closer to them. I would just sit down sometimes so that I was shorter than them and just breathe for a sec. Just wait. Give them a chance to calm down instead of feeling they need to defend themselves again against, whatever mommy's going to tell them, like, stop playing, it's dinner time. But I have to do one more thing. Just pause a sec. And sometimes just that wait would be enough. Other times, mommy worked really hard to make dinner. I know you're hungry. Let's go get some food, and just explaining to them it's not about me bossing them around. It's about me as a parent who loves them, trying to do what's best for all of us. Um, and that really helped. The first time my daughter pulled in, I hate you, because I told her to clean her room up or stop playing or something. I just sat down beside her and I waited for, like, not 2 seconds, but like 15 seconds. And because I'm always rushing. And I said, I love you. And she just started bawling and, like, fell into
Oh,
my arms and was like, I love you too, mommy. I'm just so sad, and then we could talk about the situation. But coming down with that authority and you must respect me, like, it's not going anywhere.
I love that so much. Okay, so now you're calm and
Yeah.
life was beautiful, or did you still have some issues?
Life was not beautiful yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Me being calm kind of helped things not escalate as quickly, in a lot of different situations, but learning to help my kids not escalate. Like, how can I get them to stop and think instead of, just reacting and hitting or screaming or whatever. And so one of the first plans that we made, we nicknamed Ice Cube, was an in the moment, like, playing plan, because they love to play with Legos, and they could play with Legos for like an hour. And then, I'd be doing dishes and, like, all right, they're calm, I can go clean the kitchen. And I would hear, like, one raised voice and then suddenly just screaming and crying. And I'm like, what on earth just happened? Like, why did this fall apart? And so I worked with them, on, if I couldn't get there immediately, I would holler Ice Cube, or either of them could holler Ice Cube. I really wanted it to be called Freeze because I knew that would come to mind faster. But, and we would just freeze and take a deep breath, and then we could talk about what had gone wrong instead of, immediately hitting.
So you almost like taught them what you had been trying for so long.
Yeah.
Okay. So you taught them the like stop and the breathe, but the difference was you didn't just say, "Hey, when you're fighting, stop, breathe, take a break."
Right.
You it sounds like you got them really involved with this because I even heard you say, "I wanted to call it freeze," and they were like, "No, it's ice cube." So
Yeah.
talk to me
Yeah.
just a little bit briefly, like what is that? Because I think that's a very big key here. A lot of people will say, "Well, I try making a plan for when the kids are mad at each other." But there was a very big key that you said there.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that, one day after a blow up, I just kind of sat with both of them. I sat cross-legged. I put one on either knee so I could hold them both. And we just rocked for a little bit. And then I said, is this fun? Was that fun? Do we want playtime to go this way? And both of them were, no. I said, well, what do we want? Like, obviously we're going to have disagreements, but what do we want? And my son was like, I want her to not hit me, and my daughter, I don't want him to take my things. And so I said, well, let's, when we're having trouble, let's find a way to just pause a sec so that we can talk about it. And mommy's totally welcome. I'd love to come help you with it, but what are we going to do? How are we going to get to that point from, oh no, he just took it out of my hand, to talking about it? And so we doodled it out, and I said, well, what should we do next? And we drew another picture, and my kids customized my drawings, and they helped me get the tape, and we put it up on the wall by their Legos, and it's definitely helped a lot.
That is awesome. Wait, can you share that in the group so that I can see a picture of that? Or have you shared it?
Yeah, we've got little drawings, quite a few drawings all around the house.
That is amazing. I definitely want to see this one to match the sibling plan.
Backwards. This one right here on the wall is another plan that we've got for meals. But yeah, they're just taped up in various places where the situation is.
Yeah, and the key here is that they're not plans that you found on Google or Pinterest for any old person. They are plans and that you and your kids took a huge part in. I think that's a massive piece here. Okay, so now when you leave the room, your kids they might still fight, but they at least know what to do if they fight and how to get to that talking point. But here's the thing, like, does that mean life is perfect? Or, because you said you had this like one big chaos causer. Can you talk to me about that one?
We talked about a couple, getting out of school in the morning.
Yeah. So like going back to school, right? That was a big one.
Yeah. There was, during a lot of the COVID quarantine, like really heavy shutdown, we just didn't have to go anywhere for a while. And I was like, wow, life is so much easier. I wasn't taking them to the grocery store or anything. And then, the few places I did have to take them, there was always this blow up again. And I'm like, shoot, we didn't solve that part yet. So, we kind of tried some things here and there to get getting out of the house a little better. And things got a little calmer, but I was really just kind of winging it. I would go to my daughter, hey, let's get your shoes on, and I was kind of piecemeal attacking it. But when we got back to, all right, school's starting up, we're not homeschooling this year. You guys are going to be in the building. It's going to be both of you getting out of the house. So I can't just like carry my daughter in her pajamas to get my son to school. Like, she needs to be dressed this year too. And so one day we were in the car and we were just talking about school, and my son was sharing some things with his sister about, oh, recess is so much fun, blah, blah, blah. And there was a pause in the conversation, and I said, I'm really looking forward to school too. And then I kind of went into the, but I know that sometimes we yell a lot when we get out of the house, and mommy's no fun when she's yelling, is she? No. Would we rather be walking to school when we're both calm and happy? Yeah. How do you think we can do that? And I just kind of dropped it there. And I have to slow down always, because my impulse is, if they don't have an answer for me in like 3 seconds, I'm going to start throwing out suggestions. Mm-hmm. And I was like, nope, let them think. And I'm like repeating to myself, like, give them a sec, like, they've got to process this. And, my son said, we have to start a lot earlier, like a lot earlier. And I talked with my daughter at another separate time. I told my son, of course, that was a great idea. We'll definitely do that. Talked with my daughter at a separate time about how to wake her up in the morning, because she is very hard to wake up. And then we also had another separate huddle about getting lunches ready, because sometimes previously my son would decide he didn't want school lunch like 2 minutes before it was time to get out the door. And I'm like, we can't do that right now. And so we actually practiced getting lunch ready and eating lunch before school, so that we would know, oh, you don't want school lunch today? Well, there's 15 minutes before we need to leave, and you practiced it in 10 minutes flat. So yes, we can pack you a lunch. Come help me out.
That is amazing. So you like preemptively like said, hey, I think we're going to have all these issues or all these, oh, hold on. Ugh, that has been happening lately. I forget to hit the like, do not disturb my computer.
It's okay.
There we go. Were you able to hear that? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Progress, not perfection. So
I was like, it's not mine. I put mine on airplane mode.
I know, right? So my phone is always on that, but then it connects to my computer. And so anyway, so you had all these little bitty preemptive conversations to build a bigger plan. And I think that's so key. So many times people jump in and they want the whole plan to work out in one, but you did all these mini huddles building up to a big one.
Yeah. Then that was, I had a chat with my son too at one point. He may have ADHD, like I've discovered that I have. And I realized that, I'm at the point where I want to plan the whole thing out so I know what's coming. And I'll realize my son is just totally zoned out. Like he'll be in it, he's gone. And and I can't drag him back if he's out of attention for the moment. And so we had a talk too where I said, in because he'll just let me go on, and then I'll ask him a question and he'll go, I'm sorry, I was not at all listening to that last part, which is great honesty. But so I said to him, that's really good that you could be honest. You didn't like lie and try to cover it up, but let me know when you're running out of attention. And so I tried to break the huddles down into smaller parts so that it's not this huge, overwhelming, mommy's trying to redesign the whole world today, kind of thing. And when we break it down, then they can each have time to think about their parts.
That's so amazing. Oh my goodness. Are you guys loving this? I am just absolutely loving this. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but I am absolutely loving this. Like, so I have to remain calm. I need a plan for myself so that I don't lash out at them. I need a plan so that they don't lash out at each other, or what to do if they do lash out at each other. And then, okay, we got that good, or we're great at home, but now when we leave the house, we need something. Okay, I need a plan, but I can't do it all at once. Let's break it up into small little pieces and let's practice often. I mean, this is really, really powerful stuff. So, and then you told me that there's like a new plan that just happened. Like your kids are starting to be empowered. They're starting to use these plans on their own. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was so much fun. My son, I think it was last week, my husband and I were trying to have a discussion, and again, we were like, hey, grown-ups are talking. You have to respect that. And then we're, okay, you have to wait a minute. We're almost done. And so trying to, shift that, like I'm not more of a human than they are because they're kids and I'm a grown-up. So we've kind of been trying to make sure that we're a little more manageable, with them on that. But my son said the other day, Mom, what if we took your hand and we squeezed it to let you know that we really want to tell you something? And, and then I said, oh, the way that your friend does. And his mommy squeezes back to say, okay, I hear you, but let me finish my sentence and then I'll let you speak. And he's like, yeah, we've totally got to do it. Here, it works like this, and he took my hand. And so we practiced, and my daughter was there watching, and she's like, I like that, so we practiced it together. And then just last night, I was having a conversation with my husband before he had to head out the door for something. And my son came up and squeezed my hand. And I was like, oh, I know what to do. It's this double squeeze thing. And it was the first time we've actually done it. We just did it yesterday. And so I squeezed his hand back, and I was finishing my sentence. And my husband replied, and I was like, okay, I'm going to reply back to my husband. So my son double squeezed my hand again, but Mom, I was waiting, and so I double squeezed him, like, I know, hang on, buddy. And my husband asked me another question, and like he had to get out the door, so he needed these answers right away. And I was like, oh, buddy, I hope my son can hang on for this one more, because I really want this to work now that he's implementing it. And he squeezed my hand a third time, and I gave him the double squeeze a third time. And my husband said, all right, thanks. See you later, hun. And I turned to my son and I was like, oh, you did it. That was so good. I praised the dickens out of him for implementing it, for sticking with it, for waiting with a smile. He didn't yank on my arm, or was so good. Oh, it was so good. I was so ecstatic.
I love that so much. And Ashley, what I noticed is, what do you think would have happened had you tried to implement the adult talking on your own back here when you were the authority?
It wouldn't have worked.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, like you have to wait, and so here's what you can do. Like it would have given him this much ownership, but not really, like he would have no pride in it. Like I came up with this plan, or there's so much when a kid has, when they have a stake in the game. I hope this plan works because I came up with it, and it just changes it so much.
I love that so much. Well, what would you say to someone who might be in this, like, the world is telling them, experts are telling them, you need to set rules, boundaries, hold to them consistently, and make sure that the consequences are upheld. What would you say to someone who's just struggling to live that life?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's a hard shift because, we've been taught that as parents, like, this is your duty. You are the one in charge and you are the one in control. But it's not about controlling other people. It's about training your children. It's about raising them in a way that works and is good. And you can't demand obedience from somebody. You can teach them that there's natural consequences. You can teach them, that this breaks relationship, and that, see, mommy is sad and you are sad, and your toy broke because you were throwing things. And I know they can't always understand the consequences of things. Sometimes kids are too young to grasp that. And there's certainly things like, no, you may not go in the road. Like, that's a rule that I am setting as a grown up, but the way that we collaborate with them, and the way that we show them that we're a team and that they're valued, and that, the reason we're setting rules together is because we love you and we want to take care of you. And that this isn't about me being the boss. This is about all of us working together, because all of us are important.
Love that so much. Let me come back to this. There we go. I love that so much. And I am just curious, like, when you said you saw a workshop, and we actually are going to be doing another workshop very, very soon. September 20th, we're doing our Meltdown Mastery workshop. And when you saw, I mean, you have to set aside a little bit of time to do it. And you were just telling me that you like kind of cleared your schedule, you put the kids in front of videos. If someone's here and like, what was your biggest objection to doing the free workshop that might have, if you had leaned into it, like it would have kept you from making all of these plans? Like, what was the biggest thing that you were like, I don't know?
Yeah, I tried a handful of other, like, oh, what they're based on their personality. That's the most important thing, and we can figure it out based on their personality. And and that's important, but that's not the whole picture. It's a part of the picture. And there are, well, if you are more consistent about this, well, then that will help. Yeah, that's true. But if it's something that your son literally isn't able to do, like he literally is not able to sit in his chair through an entire meal, it's not. Um, you know, but so if we work with that, and we allow him to sit halfway in his chair and walk around his chair twice and then sit back down in the chair, instead of leave the room and go outside and play. If we work together on something that actually works for both of you, then it actually works, instead of just trying to squish a kid into a mold that you wish they fit in, or that your friends' kids fit into. Because I dealt with a lot of parenting comparison shame. Like, why does your kid respond to that and mine just doesn't? Like, how would you handle this situation? Oh, I'll try that. Nah, that didn't work at all. And I need to work with my children, and not someone else's.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone who they're just now hearing about Meltdown Mastery Workshop? It's free. It's September 20th through the 27th. And they're thinking, I don't know, man, like I've tried all the things. I know my kids, like I'm an expert in my own kid. I don't need more parenting advice. Like, what would you say to them?
You do know your kids. Do you know yourself? Because that's been a big thing with me, is understanding how my triggers play into this, how I'm affecting it, how as I said in the beginning, like I was teaching them bad habits. And so, where do kids learn these things? Well, at home a lot of the time. And so it's, there are a lot of good tips and tricks along the way. There's definitely things that I learned in your workshop that I was like, I'm doing that, but not combined, not flowing through the situations. And so, or I used to do that, or I tried that and it did work, and then some situation changed and I dropped it. Like I should get back to that one. Yeah, there's just so much good stuff in it, and going behind the scenes, going under the behavior. Like, I see this, it just looks like he's being a brat right now. But it's because he's totally overwhelmed and exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can work with that, when we know, don't stick him in his room, snuggle with him or something. But that's not the advice for every situation. It needs to be your kid in your situation.
Yeah, I love that so much. And so, is there anything final just on your heart that, I can see a lot of mamas here being like, there is so much gold here. Like, this is amazing. Helen saying, I love this so much. And Dina saying, this is full of gold. What would you say? Is there anything on your heart that you wish someone had said to you a year ago?
Ooh. There's hope. There's hope. And you have to put in the work. There's definitely I totally binged on the first series workshop and, reviewed my notes and was like, that's so cool. And I got into the huddle and watched it for a bit. And then, I drop off for a month, and then I binge watch 3 more videos and drop off for a month. And, some things seeped in. Like I was doing my breathing. I was like, okay, calm down before you respond to this. Okay, just grab the kid that's hurting the other kid and then take your deep breath or whatever. But, it's when my husband said, have you talked to our daughter about that when you're not both freaking out about it? And I was like, oh man, I need to huddle, and where I remember, work the whole process through, because, I jump in, I jump out, I binge stuff, and some stuff just osmosis kind of flows through the situation. But when you work through the plans, put in the homework, put in the time, watch their behavior, spiral it out, see what happened before and before that and before that to see why this is happening. And it's worth it. It's worth the time. It's worth the effort.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. For anyone who's still here watching, if we can give Ashley lots of love in the comments, like let her know the biggest takeaway that you've had, the thing that you're going to want to implement. So just to recap, actually, maybe I'll come back to the doodles because it'll be easier to recap. So we'll do this one. And then Ashley, I'll bring you right back up here in just a minute. So don't go anywhere. Let's just recap real fast. So Ashley shared with us how she went from feeling like she had to be the authority in the house, constantly creating the rules and the expectations and being consistent. And then now being in a family that works together, that solves problems together, that comes up with plans together. And she walked us through the 4 plans that she implemented. And she told me before the training or the call that she implemented a whole lot more, right? Like this is just the tip of the iceberg. But these were the 4 that really made a difference in I need to start with me and really focus on myself remaining calm first. Number 2 is I need to get my kids being able to play together and solve problems together. Number 3 is I need to be able to solve problems as a family, get out the door without fights. And then number 4 is I need my kids to be able to solve problems on their own and be able to come up with the solutions. So really, really powerful here, the 4 steps that she followed. And this is very similar to the Calm the Chaos journey. She's just kind of done the thing, right? And we're going to be talking about that in our Meltdown Mastery workshop. So make sure that you are signed up at meltdownmastery.com. It is a free workshop. There will be replays. You want to show up live because we'll do some coaching calls and things like that. But it is going to be absolutely fabulous. If we can just go ahead and give Ashley some love in the comments. And I would just love to say thank you one more time. It was an honor to talk to you, Ashley. You have a beautiful family. You are a beautiful person. And this is just amazing. You've done great work here.
Thank you, Dana. Thanks for taking us on this journey. It's been very, very helpful.
Awesome. For everyone else, I will see you in Meltdown Mastery, meltdownmastery.com. I'll see you guys there. Bye, guys. Now we have that awkwardness where I try to hit end live. Okay. Hold on.